Hi, my name is Ben Atkinson, and welcome to Season 2 of the Functional Health Podcast. I'm trained in both biomedical science and nutrition, and I firmly believe that a holistic and functional approach to health is fundamental to our well-being. I interview some of the leading voices in nutrition and lifestyle medicine, from practitioners to professors and everyone in between. With this podcast, I will share with you their stories, their expertise, and their advice, shedding light on the industry from each of their perspectives and providing you with simple tips and tricks to help improve your health from today. This week, I'm delighted to be speaking with the fitness explorer, Darryl Edwards. Darryl is an internationally renowned speaker, coach, nutritionist, and author. He has pioneered and popularised functional movements, making exercise fun and engaging. I first met Darryl at a conference with Dr. Kelly Brogan in London, and we recently met up at a wellness event and arranged this recording. So, without further ado, Darryl, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks very much, Ben. That was a great introduction. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So you've been in this health space for a while now, but originally, from memory, you started off in IT and banking. When did your thinking shift to pursue a career in this health and fitness industry?
Yes, you're correct. I was a technologist working within investment banking, and I had a very lucrative career working in the city and around the world. And health wasn't really something that I was focusing on. I just assumed, you kind of assume everyone is healthy, unless something bad goes wrong or you reach a certain age. And unfortunately, after having an annual health check, realized that something wasn't quite right. So I was told I was pre-diabetic. I was suffering with hypertension, high blood pressure for some time. And also I had an elevated risk of heart disease. So my, cholesterol profile and my lipid profile wasn't healthy. And so I had this kind of catalog of issues, and the recommendation was to take prescription medication to resolve them. So beta blockers for my blood pressure, metformin for my blood glucose because I was pre-diabetic to manage that. I was told to take statins to deal with the cholesterol issues.
All very commonly prescribed drugs in this day and age.
Prescribed, and to be fair, I would have signed up to that prescription if I wasn't concerned about the side effects. So I was just like, that sounds, tell me about the side effects, doc. And the doctor was like, told me what the side effects were, but said don't worry, because if there are any side effects, we can always prescribe something else. So I literally was a bit of a cowardice when it came to taking pills. And so I said, is there an alternative? And there wasn't one presented to me. But I did remember at the time knowing about physical activity and exercise being one great way to manage high blood pressure, being physically active.
Yes.
And I knew I was sedentary in my job. So I was like, let's see if I can sort out my blood pressure. Is it just genetics? Is that what it is? I'm getting older and there's just nothing I can do, or maybe I can do something about this. So that's what happened. I started exercising, and my blood pressure came down to normal levels without any other change. So that was a kind of gateway to recognizing that my lifestyle behaviors could affect health markers that my doctor was telling me needed prescription meds.
Yes.
And so that started the kind of exploration of thinking, well, what else can I do to improve my health? Will my activity help in other areas of concern? And once I do this, do I need to start looking at maybe my diet too to support what I'm doing in terms of physical activity? So for some people, diet and nutrition tends to be their way of improving, one way of improving their health. For me, it was physical activity and movement. And I saw nutrition supporting that role, and then started looking at other areas of how I can improve my lifestyle to support my health choices. And so many years later, when I decided I kind of fell out of love with investment banking and technology, could I follow my passions in terms of getting other people on board with this message
Yes.
and teaching other people how to improve their health in a simple but very profound way. So that's how the journey began. My own personal transformation, realizing how powerful and potent this lifestyle medicine is, and I just didn't feel satisfied in continuing my previous career, and I thought, let me see if I can probably take a pretty radical decision not to quit that career,
Yes.
making lots of money in the city, to follow my passion and not make much money as much. But yeah, it was like, at any stage in your life when you realize what makes your heart sing, what brings you joy, is probably more important than just whatever your paycheck is at the end of the month. It made me recognize that this is what I wanted to pursue, and out of the lifestyle kind of pillars of health, I recognized that movement was what I was the most passionate about, and that within the 21st century, we're living in a very sedentary state.
Yes, absolutely.
And we need to do something about this. We need to be educated about the drawbacks of a sedentary lifestyle, and offer solutions to evoke some change.
Yes, and I think that is happening slowly but surely. People like yourself are realizing like the nutritional and lifestyle that they were leading, it may have caused disease, but you can also leverage nutrition and lifestyle to reverse these sort of disease and ailments and conditions like you have done. And I think that's really empowering for people.
Yes, for sure, and I think it's always important to recognize that it's never too late. So I'm not foolhardy to say that lifestyle can be the solution to all ills.
No.
That there isn't a place for conventional medicine, that there isn't a place for, acute treatment, for prescription meds. That's not what I'm suggesting. And I think we need to be careful that we want to be getting the best of both worlds. We want to get the best of modern science, the best of conventional medicine, and in conjunction with the best of what our ancestors have done for generations, leading us to good health. So, we were designed to be physically active, to eat a particular food which was healthful, to have a particular sleeping pattern which would ensure that we had adequate rest, that we, weren't permanently in kind of chronically stressful conditions, for example. So that heritage, that ancestral heritage, is really important for us to navigate the 21st century. And it almost sounds, it almost becomes almost cliched, this journey from, I was really, really sick, hey presto, I did a couple of star jumps in the gym, and everything was magical. But no, I think this medicine, this medicine that I believe is important, is something that we have to continually work at and continue to pursue. There wasn't a kind of a road to Damascus conversion where it was like, okay, I was sedentary one day, I started being physically active the next, I improved my diet, and everything was great, was rosy. It's something that has to become part of your, lifestyle is the important point, right?
Yeah,
So
I completely agree.
Have to be constantly doing this,
Well, it's just as you would, if you were prescribed a medication, you would constantly take it. People are on statins for life, for example, to reduce their cholesterol. But like you have done, you've used exercise and lifestyle as a medicine, and that needs to be practiced and taken daily in some cases in order to control those ailments. I think you're exactly right.
Yes, for sure. And I think for some people, there can be a complete reversal of whatever their kind of chronic lifestyle condition was. It may it may be a case of managing the disease, or just being in a much better place
Yes.
than if you weren't thinking about your lifestyle. So I think again, it's important to put this into the context of, disease is a part of nature. Disease is a part of nature. There is no one is signed off at birth to say you will be 100% healthy and not encounter any issues throughout your entire life. I don't believe that's the blueprint for human beings, and that we don't see that anywhere in nature. All organisms are trying to thrive, including those which are pathogens for us, right? So what we can do is reduce the risk of the issues that we're constantly being bombarded with. And when you then add the additional burden of 21st century, which means convenience becomes more important than it has in the past. It means it's easier to have highly processed fast food whenever we want.
Yes.
It's easier to say, you know what, I'm not going to take the stairs. I'm actually not going to leave my home. I'm just going to sit here and not move because I don't really need to. I can satisfy my kind of primal urges of food and
yes, you can
shelter.
Order food from the shops. You can order
Yeah.
a takeaway, which is already cooked for you. Yeah, you don't need
Yes.
to leave the house if you don't want to.
Exactly. So that's that's a sort of issue. Like it isn't about willpower. It isn't about us being lazy and not being bothered to be focusing on our health. Our environment has changed to the point where we just don't have to. We're not forced to make decisions which were about survival. So if I went back a few thousand years and decided not to leave home, there wouldn't be any food for me, right? I would have to go out and hunt or gather food or farm food. That would have to be part of my day in order to ensure I could feed my family. Now you can click a button and you can have access to this food. I don't have to have locomotion as part of my day involving my legs. I can use public transport or just stay in my armchair if I choose. So of course, I love the 21st century, and I wouldn't want to live in another era. I love technology. I love the best of what the 21st century has to offer, but I recognize it also, gives us a false sense of security. It lulls us into thinking that convenience and technology is our savior, and sometimes it can actually be detrimental to our health. So going back to basics is really important, and recognizing that as human beings, that as I said, we were designed to move. We're designed to eat in a particular way, and we were designed to be. We need to think about the animals that we are, and that will help us make healthier choices.
And just adding to that, like people know that exercise is beneficial. They know that they should do it, but they often view it as a chore, and they often don't have the motivation to do it. But with your style of movement and the development of Primal Play, you've managed to make it fun. Did this happen kind of naturally, or did you set out to make movement more enjoyable?
No, my first kind of when I began thinking about physical activity and exercise, I joined the most elitist gym that I could.
Yes.
Where I was working, for one. Secondly, I chose the most kind of brutal of workouts, the most punishing of workouts. So you can imagine my work environment back then was very cutthroat. It was a meritocracy. It was all about performance. It was how much money you're making or saving the bank. That's what it was about. And so you fought tooth, nail, and claw to sometimes just keep your job at times, right? It was that type of environment. And so I took that work ethic into the gym.
Right.
The people I was working out with, being the leader or winning at a particular workout. So I took that into the gym, and there was remarkable gains in a short space of time.
Yes.
I got fitter and faster and stronger. I I changed physically. I became more physically capable, more functional as a human. So there was lots of quick wins, lots of ticks. Like, oh my goodness, look what I can do now. This is incredible. I've never had this ability in my life, you know. So isn't this incredible? But what I found after a while was that if I wasn't winning, if I wasn't able to compete, if I wasn't able to train because I was injured, if I couldn't find the time to do what I wanted to do, then, or if I was training with people who I felt weren't at my level of ability, it was frustrating. And so there was there's quite a bit of negativity surrounding that activity, lots of additional stress, which I probably wasn't getting the best out of those workouts to some degree. And then when I was pushing myself so hard that I became injured, then I had an enforced period of being sedentary again because I couldn't, you know, I was in pain.
Yes.
So that was when I had a bit of a light bulb moment of, you know, why do I sometimes hate going to the gym? Like it's becoming a chore, it's becoming labored. I'm seeing it now as something that I'm only doing because I know it's good for my health, or because if I don't go, I'm not going to be record as good numbers on the whiteboard as I could previously. Yes. You know, if I don't keep going, you know, if I don't keep working hard, and so I started to kind of hate the process, and I would only enjoy the end result, the goal, or bragging about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
hey,
I think that resonates with a lot of people, though. It's like they often hate what they're doing, but just are doing it for that end result.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, if that motivates you, if that's what you need to do to be successful, you know, to continually work out, then there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it became something that I started to despise, and I started to be like watching the clock, watching, you know, when's this workout going to end, you know, and so yeah, I started to become. It was so goal oriented that I wasn't enjoying the process at all. And I just asked myself, when was the last time, Darryl, that you really enjoyed movement and physical activity? You know, when did you start falling out of love with movement? And that was basically when I started to train, you know. So when PE at school became more about drills and, you know, drop and do 10 and that kind of discipline, that's when I recall thinking, oh, playing basketball, for example, isn't as much fun as it used to be, you know, and I want to make the team, but I'm not good enough. Right. And, you know, and playing football isn't as good as when I'm with my friends and we use our jumpers as goalposts, and, you know, like we can pretend to play like Brazil or whatever. It doesn't really matter how good or not we are, but we're just having so much fun that games can last for hours and hours, right? So that was my eureka moment. That's when I recognized that if I could just recapture some of that feeling, then I'd fall back in love with movement again, and I could forget about what I believe is important from physical activity now. So that's basically what happened. I realized I didn't have to be in a gym environment using gym equipment to achieve what I wanted physically. You know, I could still achieve a lot from fitness, but use play as a way of getting there rather than work. So, you know, just think about the concept of working out, for example. You know, that the problem is in the word itself. You know, you know, we work because we have to. We have no choice. That tends to be the reason why we work, right? If you gave people the option, most people wouldn't work, right? If you could say to somebody, you can make just as much money you staying at home all day every day, most people will take that and do whatever they would choose to do with their leisure time. So work means doing something you have no option but to do because you want to survive, you want to live. And when we do decide to be physically active, we choose to work out. So it's not often we're going to be looking forward to that. You know, it's like it makes sense. You know, the words we use are all important. and we're using words that are already kind of making us feel uncomfortable about what we're going to have to do. And then whenever we think about what we're doing, it's about this punishment, let's punish myself for the cream cake I ate last night. Let me endure something arduous because I want to raise some money for charity. That's what it's about, right? I want to run a 5K because I want to show people I can run 5K and you can't. Or I want to do a marathon because, I want to show that I can do something which involves a lot of stamina, endurance, and, and suffering and pain in order to achieve this. That's what it becomes. And if you ask a child that, if you said to a child, hey, you know what we're going to do today is just go and we're just going to run for 6 miles. Why? Because it's going to be lots of fun running in a straight line, just seeing how fast you can run. No, that's not fun at all. It'd be like, what can we do on the route may be fun for them, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, not running in a straight line, like interacting with the objects and the environment as we go would probably be fun to a kid. But for us as adults, we just go, no, running in a straight line as fast as we can, and literally collapsing in a heap at the end of it is what we can say is something that we enjoy. And actually it's more that we endure than enjoy.
Yeah.
And when I think about this, and all of the people who tell me, you have discussions with people and they say, well, actually, Darryl, no, you're mistaken. I really love exercise, and all my friends, we love exercise, and I've always loved exercise. And I'm like, you're probably the kind of person who loves going to the dentist and having, scale and polish. There are some people who look forward to their dentist appointment with no concern. But there's a lot of people who are like, I'm only doing this because I know it's good for my oral hygiene. But you know what I mean? Like, I know I have to go through this. But for some people, it's terrifying. And no wonder people find it difficult to maintain a lifelong habit of exercise. People make money on the fact that we don't have a lifelong love affair with exercise. For example, gyms. Gyms survive. Their business model is based on get as many people to sign up in January as we can. We know it's going to be uncomfortable for a few days because there's going to be too many people coming to the gym and we don't have enough space or equipment. But give it a few weeks, all those new members will disappear. And you won't see, we hardly see them for the rest of the year, but we're still going to get their subscription every month. And that's what they thrive on. That's what their business model is about. Get as many members as you can, but don't worry, they're not going to all attend. And there's going to be a significant drop off. And hopefully they'll come again next year and sign up for another 12 months. And that's why they use a subscription model. Because if people did pay as you go, people would only pay for a handful of times and then go, you know what, this isn't really me.
Maybe just for the first month of January in most cases.
Yes. First month of Jan. And even then it's not, when you look at the stats, I mean, I'm a bit of a geek, and I'm looking at the kind of fulfillment and the participation rates, and the drop off is significant. Like basically from the first week of Jan, New Year's resolutions, there's a significant drop off in the first week, even then, right? Of people signing up, and then the next few weeks it drops off again. By the time we hit end of January into February, it's something like a 50% of new members won't attend again for the rest of the year. And then as you go through the ones who do survive January, it's a very, very small percentage. So those who are self-disciplined, who are highly motivated, they'll be there, day after day, week after week, making the most of their memberships. And in effect, people who don't attend subsidize the membership of those who are going regularly. So my kind of thoughts on this now is that we have the wrong approach to exercise.
Yes, and just to add to what you were saying. Something you said there really resonated with me is that we consider it as working out and not playing. And as kids, we'd go outside to play, whether that be football or whatever. And as you said, we'd kick a ball around for 3 hours at a time, which probably end up running 5 miles or plus. And now as adults, we don't
Yes.
play normally, right?
Yes, we find it difficult to play, and we see it as something which is childish and something that we've grown out of, and we don't appreciate the benefits of play for adults and even for our kids. Many adults are not letting their kids play as I experienced as a kid. So not many kids are free roaming, are given free reign to kind of go out and play in their local neighborhoods. It happens rarely now for many reasons. So play has become almost like a dirty word. But the research suggests that the more playful you are, the more creative you are, the better you are at social interaction and cooperation. Especially for children who are play deprived, for example, they have so many issues in relation to personal development, in relation to kind of emotional intelligence, physical literacy. It's the whole kind of 360 for a young human being affected by being play deprived. They can't risk assess. They have difficulty adjusting to difficult situations. So there are so many lessons that are learned, but through play, that are significant. And we see this in other mammals too. And we don't see, adult mammals don't all of a sudden go, I'm too old for this. Doesn't happen. Big cats will still play, right?
Yeah.
Other animals will still play as adults, and their play isn't of a different form like it is for humans. Where we go, oh no, we can't play tag anymore because we played that when we were kids. We've got to play squash or organized sport or play poker. That's what play becomes, something a bit more cerebral, but not necessarily as fun, which is probably the missing piece. It's maintaining that sense of fun. So primal play is trying to combine primal, natural, instinctive movement, which we need. We need to move in a particular way. We need to make sure that we're utilizing different energy systems, that we're moving at different intensities, different planes of motion, different components of fitness. So we want to be strong with stamina. We want to be fast and agile with coordination and balance and grace. We want all of these components of fitness. But I believe if you add fun into the mix, you're more likely to want to continue to do it. You're more likely to see the world differently. So again, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about this philosophy and thinking about, instead of viewing play as childish, think of play as being childlike. Think of play as being youthful and full of vitality. And then that way you appreciate what a child gets from play, how they can look at an object and go, there are 1,000,001 things I can do with this. Whereas an adult will go, there's one thing I can do with this, right?
Yeah.
So an adult will say, I have to go to the gym. I have to use a treadmill to run, even if that treadmill is overlooking the beach. I've been to gyms where literally they run a treadmill looking the beach where the weather is beautiful. Blue skies, beautiful, incredible environment. And they're so fixated with, I need to be in a gym to exercise. They would rather run on a treadmill looking at people on the beach than actually running on the beach.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And no kid, again, if you took a kid into a gym with treadmills, they wouldn't be running on a treadmill for long. If you told them, hey, this is what this machine is for, right?
Yeah.
For you to run, they'd just go like, why would you? What do you mean you need a machine? Why do you need a machine to run? We can just run around in the gym, without using those machines. And they would think of creative ways. And there's other things you can do on this machine that's probably more fun. Right? Yeah. So I could geek out on that forever.
I know.
But that's where I'm at now.
I've seen you at events crawling around like a bear, walking like a duck, and other animals and creatures. And now for people that say they don't like exercise, or maybe those individuals who start at a gym and then quit, as we were just discussing, a month after, do you find that these people are perhaps more receptive to performing these kind of animal movements?
I think so. I mean, again, there's always more than one approach, right?
Yes.
And so I'm trying to get people to think a little bit differently about exercise, and to focus more on movement, and to focus more on opportunities to move. So I'm not saying that animal moves is a solution to all our woes, but if you do move more like the animals we are and the animals we observe, then you are going to be covering lots of movement bases. So, as humans, what we forget as humans, if we disassociate ourselves from the rest of the animal kingdom, which we like to do sometimes, we don't recognize what we have in common with them. And we also don't recognize what makes us human, in the sense that we tend to focus on our intelligence. That's what makes humans the top of the animal kingdom, or or the kings of the jungle or whatever. It's the fact that we can, because of our brain, and that's what's important. That's what distinguishes us from the rest of the animal kingdom. But
Yes.
one of the things that I think is even more important than that is the role of movement again. So for us as humans, we're opportunists, which means we do our best to work within the environment we're in, and if it's not suitable, we adapt. We try to adapt to that. That's what we do, or we seek out other places where we can, work within that environment. That's what we do. So our movement capability is very general and broad. So we're not the fastest of animals, for example. We can't run anywhere near as fast as a cheetah. Wild sheep can run faster than Usain Bolt, right?
Right,
Camels can outsprint Bolt, right? We can't jump very far. We're not very strong in comparison to, say, an ant. An ant can lift, up to 100 times, up to 1,000 times, I think, in some categories of ants, their body weight. We celebrate, if I can piggyback somebody, I'm kind of like, wow, look, I'm really strong individual, right? The strongest man, if they're lifting like,
I think I've seen you with 3 people on your back before, to be
yeah,
fair.
yes, yeah. But again, 3 times, let's say it's 2.5, 3 times my body weight, it's still, an ant would look at me and go, what's that, right?
Yeah.
You're a weakling, right? So that's, again, if you start thinking about the animal kingdom as a child would, and go, oh, cheetah's really fast, and dolphins are great at swimming, and monkeys can climb, and kangaroos can jump very far, blah, etc., etc., etc. What makes humans is the fact that we are pretty much we're rubbish in comparison to those specialists. But what makes us great is the fact that we are general. So we can do all of those things. We can run and climb and carry and crawl and sprint and swim, and perform all these different movement capabilities, which means that we're more adept across, more terrain. We have more functional capability, even though we can't compete one-on-one with most animals who are specialists. So this is what the Animal Moves approach was about. This is what the Animal Moves book was about, is actually saying, yes, if you try to move like a bear, if you try to jump like a flea, if you try to carry, by piggyback carrying someone, then you're going to get stronger. You're going to be get better at combating, working against gravity, because you're going to be jumping. If you're crawling, then you're going to be working all 4 limbs, cross pattern movement, which is significant for the brain. There's lots of brain engagement with crawling, kind of quadrupedal movement patterns, contralateral movement patterns. So there's so many benefits that come about by moving more like the animals we are. So that's what I'm trying to, I suppose, on the one hand, trying to push, but it also means there's something reminiscent and nostalgic of what we did as kids, where we would pretend to be these animals, right? We pretend to be a bunny rabbit. We pretend to be, you're a lion, I'm a gazelle, chase me.
Yes.
I'm a gorilla. I want to climb the tree. You would do this as a kid, and no one would tell you that's what you had to do. As soon as you saw what these animals could do, you're like, oh, I want to be an animal. I want to be that animal. I want to see what it's like to move in the way that they do. So yeah, there were so many benefits in moving like animals. And so it tapped into something that we recall, that we remember from when we were kids, which means more of us would have fun moving that way. Not just because moving like animals is fun, but because it taps us in to our biology. It taps us into what we experienced as kids, where we went, we're doing this because it's fun, not because I'm trying to achieve any goals of, the more cheetah-like I can be, the better it's gonna be for me as a human being. That's not the decisions you make, right? As a kid, you go, is this going to be fun?
Yeah.
And if it is, how can I make it as much fun as possible?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
What was profound
and can I get
to me?
other people to share this experience with me?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you go, it's not fun anymore, you do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so
what was profound for me though, when I tried some of the workouts in Animal Moves, not only were they fun, but they were also quite challenging. And so even though I thought I was fit in one sense, it is increasingly apparent that I have some weaknesses which your workouts have highlighted. Do you find that's often the case with people who maybe think they're fit to begin with and then try your workouts?
Totally. I mean, that's probably the number one. Yeah, the two lots of feedback that I get. One would be, oh, I'm having so much fun. That would be one category. The second would be, I underestimated what these movements were going to be like. They're usually regular gym goers, usually people who are very, very fit in one way or the other. And I kind of go, I can't believe that this was so difficult, and I'm like, well, yes, because your strength usually is in one or two dimensions. Okay, I go to the gym and I lift heavy weights, right? So you lift them in a particular way, you hold the bar in a particular way, or you use machinery in a certain way.
Yes.
So there's so much of you which isn't being engaged. That is also part of being strong. So as soon as you shift to another way of utilizing your musculature to perform a movement, you then realize, actually, why do I feel so weak at doing this? It's only my own body weight. Why am I, I can lift easy twice my body weight, but I'm trying to do this kind of press motion, this bear press, and I'm really struggling, So yes, exercise is, I have to mention this, exercise is a substitute for the lack of physical activity that we used to get. So in the 21st century, in the modern era, people realize we're not moving enough.
Yes.
There's something detrimental happening to us.
Yeah.
What can we do?
People have heard the adage, sitting is the new smoking. That's been kicked about now. Yeah,
it is. And you know what's really bizarre is you don't have to go back. We humans tend to love feeling as if they're the first to, oh, yes, we've just discovered this. We're just realizing how important physical activity is. But, the start of the advent of Western medicine, Hippocrates mentioned the importance of physical activity. He prescribed to his patients, physical activity was prescribed to his patients, right? So there's been a recognition for thousands of years how important physical activity is.
Yes.
But we just don't get the message. Every generation moves less than the generation before. And then somebody will tell you, hey guys, the latest evidence is telling us it's important. But that's not enough to get people galvanized. We've never had more classes, more information, books, podcasts, you name it, right? We've never had more information on the benefits of physical activity than ever in human history. At the same time, we've never been as sedentary as we've ever been in human history. Absolutely. So there's something that isn't working with our thirst for knowledge in relation to this. And we need to kind of go, we don't need to know anymore, right? We need to implement what is useful for humans to engage in. So yeah, I do think there's an underlying problem of, satisfying the kind of intellectual satisfaction comes first, and we're satisfied with that's enough, and it leads to things like, almost like, if you watch, I remember watching the 2012 Olympics on TV, and also I was fortunate enough to see some of the events, and you almost empathize with the with people participating. And I remember watching Usain Bolt, for example, and thinking about sort of training he was doing, and I remember kind of envisaging me being like the fastest. I want to sprint. I want to be. Oh my goodness. But I'm just sitting there. I'm not actually doing anything at all. And so spectating is more popular than, billions of people around the world watch the Olympics. Several thousand people taking part in an event, and many of us decided after this Olympics, I'm going to take up rowing or cycling or or whatever it was. But it doesn't last long, because it doesn't satisfy our real kind of thirst for movement. It's a poor, it's a poor substitute. And so we need to get back to basics. We need to create scenario environments which make us go, oh, this is easier for us to do. It's fun. It's engaging.
So for people who are maybe sitting at a desk all day, whether it be at school or in an office, at work somewhere, how can they incorporate movement into their daily lives to help reverse this kind of negative effect of sitting all day?
Well, I suppose they have to just sit less, right? And almost create diversions.
Right.
So a diversion might be, every time I pick up my phone, I'm going to do it involving some movement. So that might be, if you can't have a standing desk, for example, it might be every time my phone rings, every time my notification goes, I'm going to stand up and have a look at it, right? Every time somebody asks me, sends me an email and they're only like a few meters away, I'll get up out of my chair and I'll go and actually have a chat with them. I'll take the stairs rather than taking the lift 1 or 2 floors at work. So it's about avoiding convenience. That'll be the first thing that I would suggest.
Yes.
Anytime you realize that this feels great, like, oh wow, sitting here feels great. Being in this lift, it's so easy. This just feels, I don't have to do any work, physical work. That's when you need to say, hold on a second. I need to take the stairs, because what I want to be saying to myself is, whew, those stairs were hard work, weren't they? Tick. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Oh my goodness, I've been standing for 20 minutes. Whew, I'm feeling that. Tick. I'm going to get off the bus a few stops early and go for a brisk walk. Whew, there's a few beads of sweat. Oh, I'm getting out of breath. That's what you want to feel more often.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes of structured exercise. Just get more of those movement breaks. Yes. Throughout the day.
I remember someone saying in between adverts on the TV, they just got up and did squats and press-ups and interchanged the two. Now, there are numerous exercises you can do, but...
Yes, I mean, I don't want to be the person that says doing something is better than nothing, right?
Right.
Because I don't want people to feel good about doing 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or like 5 minutes. Oh, I did my 5 minutes a day. At least I'm not completely sedentary, because we need to be doing more than that. Mm-hmm. But, you want to be seeking out opportunities for movement. So, for example, if I do squats and press-ups and sit-ups during the commercial break, there will come a point in time for most people, and they'll go, I'm not looking forward to the commercial break. because because that means I'm gonna have to do those squats and press-ups and sit-ups. I mean, it's almost, again, another form of like torture for some people. Like, I'm not doing this because this is fun. I'm doing this because I have a break in that program where I was going to be sitting for an hour, right? But I've got like a couple of minutes every 20 minutes or so where I can do some movement. But it's never going to be a regular thing. People will do it for the short term. I don't know anyone who decides that's what they're going to do who continues to do it indefinitely. And that's the problem. They're all very good short-term solutions. They're not ones that become part of you, that you continually do. because you'll come home from work one day and you'll go, I'm really shattered and I would love to do some movement in the commercial break, but instead I'm just going to fast forward. You know what I mean? I'm just going to skip the commercial break instead. That's what people will do, right? I just want to see the rest of the show. So I would suggest, for example, with the remote control, I would do things like this. I'm watching a show. I want to watch it. I actually want to sit in my sofa and watch it, right? I want to be sedentary for the next hour when I'm watching this. But I'll do things like, the remote control to the other side of the room. I'll bear crawl to get the control. I'll squat for a bit whilst I'm watching the show. I can't squat forever. So it means I have to shift around. I have to move, So the movement becomes something that within that hour, I'm kind of constantly moving, even though it's quite small and subtle movements, but there's constant movement. And I'm not feeling comfortable just sitting there for the hour. And I'm not kind of reserving myself for that big 3 minutes of, jumping jacks for 3 minutes. Wow, I can't wait, right? Instead, I'm going, anytime I feel like moving around, I'm going to do it. I'm going to bear crawl. Every time I go from the living room to the kitchen, I'll think of another way of getting into that room. So it then becomes more playful and more creative rather than something that's daunting. And then if I change it, if I don't feel like doing that, I can do something else rather than thinking I have to stick to a structure. So I think that these tips are all well and good, but the overall tip should be avoid convenience. Number one. Second, find opportunities to move more in a given situation. So if I'm walking up the stairs, maybe take two steps at a time. Maybe one day think about running up the stairs. Maybe think about taking each step as lightly as you can, like you're running on hot coals, right? Being as silent as you can, being ninja-like as you take the stairs. I mean, and some of this is going to be uncomfortable. Like some of this you're not going to want anyone to see, right? You don't want anyone to see you kind of running like a ninja up the stairs.
Well, my bear crawl isn't quite perfected yet either, so...
But again, perfection, think about children when they move. I mean, clumsy, like all fingers and thumbs. I mean, they don't tend to be the most graceful of movers, right? So, but they're not embarrassed by that. They're just like, again, we're having fun. And so I think that's what we need to focus on. Not how great my bear crawl looks or how perfect it is.
Yes.
But just the fact that I'm actually doing it. And it's uncomfortable, and it's like, why is my coordination off? Doesn't matter, because your coordination is going to improve, and you're challenging your brain. When your coordination is off, your brain's going, what the heck is happening? You're creating new brain cells. Your hippocampus is increasing in size. Your ability to make decisions and improve your memory improves. You're preventing cognitive decline and dementia, the risk of dementia when that occurs. So it's again, something very simple, like a bear crawl that's a little bit like, which hand, what's happening?
Yes.
is probably the most beneficial part of that. Once you get good at it, it has less of a less potent impact. It then becomes maintenance. It then becomes conditioning. But the learning new movement is the most powerful part of the process, which is why when children from babies are learning to move, that's when they have the most acceleration of intelligence, of brain growth, is when they're learning all of these different movement patterns as kids. Learning to roll over, learning to support their head, learning to stand and to balance and to crawl and to walk. All of that coincides with significant new neurogenesis, new neurons and new synapses being connected. So I mean, just tell me to shut up. But
no, absolutely not. I was going to say you've got a huge variety of movements in your book for anyone to try. But some of the listeners at home may be like, can people at any age do this? Or is there certain things which you wouldn't advocate for everyone?
I would say do it all. do you know what? Like, can you imagine saying to someone, oh, I want to learn to play the violin. Do you think it's okay to do that at 80 years old? Not many people would say, no, you know what? You're past it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at 80, it's just, the learning process is a little bit more, it's a little bit more difficult to learn something the older you get, so you shouldn't do it. No, we would celebrate it, right? So, of course, there are going to be things which are more difficult as we're older. You know, we may have injuries. We may have, disabilities. We may have, issues in relation to mobility, which means some things are going to be very, very difficult to do. But as human beings, just find what you can do. Focus on what you can rather than what you can't. Recognize that some of this process is going to be difficult and uncomfortable, and embrace that, because that discomfort is where we become stronger. That adversity, that physical adversity, leads to, that physical stress leads to our bodies adapting to become stronger. So there is nothing in the Animal Moves book that I would say you should not attempt this.
Yes.
Scale it to your ability, but making sure that you're out of your comfort zone so that you actually have some personal growth and development. So to give you a practical example of this, I've had people of 4 years old to 94 years old taking part in doing animal moves in group sessions.
That's fantastic.
And, of course, at the outset, people are like, I'm just going to let you know now, Darryl, I'm not doing this, that, and the other. This is not going to happen. My knees, my back, my this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, I'm going to create an environment where you're going to feel as if you can do anything that I ask you to do. And we'll work through this together, and we'll create equalization, and we'll create something that's inclusive. And so whatever your age, whatever your ability, whatever your skills are, again, if we revert back to that childlike, not childish, not petulant, but the childlike approach to movement, you're playing a game with your friends. A new person comes to the neighborhood and you like them, you want them to take part. Do you say to them, oh, you know what? The rules are so complicated. We've been playing this game for years. There's just no point inviting you to play. No, what you do is you go, we'll tell you the first couple of rules that you need to know, just so you can get involved. And then over time, we'll give you something a little bit more complicated. You know what I mean? Because the most important thing is that you're involved, that you're including people. And that's how I approach working with people of different abilities. It's like, yeah, you know what? Let's adapt this so that you feel as if you're part of this. You're not thinking, it's okay for you, Darryl, because, you're a lot younger than I am. And, it's not fair. Actually, let's make sure that you can participate.
Yes, and you actually have a really inspiring video. I believe it was on your website where I saw it, where it was a person with MS, and you had them being able, for the first time in years, they haven't been able to exercise, and with the help or support from you, they managed to jump several times. It was absolutely inspiring.
Yeah, that was a beautiful moment. She was in a wheelchair, and she was watching one of my classes. And she said to me, and I didn't know anything about her, I didn't know about her condition, and she said something like, I wish I could take part in your class. And I didn't ask her what was wrong with her, what her issues were. I said, why don't you join in? And she said, well, look, I'm in a wheelchair, I can't join in. I mean, of course you can. And so what happened was she said, well, I can't even get out of my wheelchair. And I went, okay, well, I can lift you out. And if I can't, then a couple of us can, or three of us can. So we lifted her out, got her to stand. And, we were jumping as part of that activity. And she was like, well, I can't jump. It's not possible. I was like, well, we'll create a way that you can jump. And in the video that you saw, where you see that I'm kind of supporting her,
yes.
If you listen really carefully, she says to me, whilst I'm kind of supporting her, she goes, let me do this by myself. She kind of goes, don't give me so much help. And so she just completely transformed. And I'm literally just there as almost like a safety net, rather than actually performing for her. So she went from, I can't participate, I can't get out of my wheelchair, I could never jump. I'm just watching you guys jumping, thinking, oh, I wish I could do that. And she wasn't always, because she had MS, she was formerly very active and of course wasn't always in a wheelchair. So she was remembering what she was able to do in the past and just thinking, that's just it. But actually, no, the reality was, let's create an environment where you can still do some of this stuff, where you're focusing on what you can do rather than what you can't. So yeah, I'm pretty excited and passionate about Primal Play and getting people to realize, all superhumans have vulnerability, right? Have their own kryptonite. And so rather than thinking about what we can't do, Superman doesn't spend all his time going, oh my goodness, kryptonite, it'll be the death of me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to venture out because somebody might have kryptonite and, oh my goodness. No, he goes, I'll do whatever I can to save the world. And if I encounter kryptonite, I'll deal with it.
Yes.
And so that's what we should do as humans. My knees are shot. I've got osteoarthritis. It's really painful. But you know what? Some days I can walk quite a bit without it being too uncomfortable. And I feel really good about it. And so on those days, I'll walk a bit more, so it's a different approach. It's again, focusing on what you can do rather than what you can't. So we've kind of gone off a tangent here, but all of these, all of these metaphors are very childlike. Superheroes were a big part of my childhood. And so I'm like, how can I use that to educate us as adults? Because we all have that narrative, right? We all remember having heroes who were superheroes when we were young, and we all mimicked them, and we all focused on what they were great at doing, and we didn't really appreciate their flaws, and that's what made them, who they were, right? It was the flaws that made superheroes what they were.
Yes, and I think just acknowledging that and overcoming them are hugely important. I'm a massive advocate and supporter of what you're doing, but for the sake of time, I'm probably going to move on to the last 3 topics that I ask everyone who comes on the show. The first one is, how do you see medicine evolving as new research emerges in this area, in this case about movement?
I think one day we'll start seeing, I think we're going to go full circle. So as I mentioned earlier, Hippocrates used to write prescriptions, including exercise and movement as part of that, treatment. And I'm sure that will happen. I would love that to happen again in future, where, some doctors will say, you don't need medication for this. You just need some movement. That's what you need. Or you need some medication because for whatever reason, but you also need to ensure that movement is part of that. So you may need even less medication.
Yes.
And I'm not saying movement, again, I'm not saying movement should only be looked at in isolation. Food is important, sleep is important, all those that getting sunshine, being outdoors, it's all important. But I think in particularly looking at movement, there's going to be a greater appreciation of its role in prevention, but also therapy for chronic lifestyle disease.
And do you think movement and exercise should be more integrated into healthcare as it is now in the UK?
For sure. I mean, I think to be honest, I think it should be integrated in, it should be public policy.
Yes.
So if movement is only seen as in terms of prevention, that's not going to work. I mean, again, we know, look at the history of, say, smoking. How many decades and decades of information telling us how bad it was, how harmful it is for our health. But the biggest reduction in smoking rates in the UK, for example, was when it was banned in many public spaces, right?
Yeah.
That was the most significant change in our smoking habits, was when in 97, I think, was it 97 or 2007? I can't remember now. It was in 2007 when smoking was banned in public spaces, right? Same like seatbelts in cars. We had all of that education saying, seatbelts, can if you're not wearing them, more deaths, blah, 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 blah. But then it was only when it was like, now it's mandatory, that people change their behavior. So I feel that waiting for doctors to tell us, you know what, you've got this issue, try some exercise, is probably too late.
Yeah.
We need to make it a societal shift where movement becomes more the norm, where we create an environment. I mean, I'm not saying that we should be banning sedentary lifestyles, but we probably should make it easier for people to have standing desks. We probably should be having, enforced, people who smoke, they're allowed to take smoke breaks, right? They're allowed to go outside their building and have a smoke, for 5 minutes every hour or whatever it is. Maybe we should have the option for people to have movement breaks,
yes.
and down tools for a couple of minutes for all workers. Maybe that should be the way that we almost enforce it to happen, and then kind of encourage and shift behavior because of that. And it's kind of nanny state, very nanny state-ish, but we need to do something fairly radical, and just trying to encourage people or tout the benefits may not be enough.
Yes, I think you've got some great ideas there. And lastly, third and lastly, can you provide the listeners with 3 tips to help improve their health and well-being?
Sit less, avoid convenience, and treat the world as your playground. Treat the world as your gym.
That third one I'm definitely going to take away with me now.
Great.
So, yeah. Just for the listeners, everything that we spoke about today will be put in the show notes, including a link to Darryl's book, Animal Moves, his previous book, Primal Play Academy, and I believe you've got Animal... What the cards that you've brought out, Darryl?
Oh, yes, the Animal Moves deck.
Yes.
So yes, I have... So Animal Moves is currently the best place to find out about my work is at primalplay.com, which is where I blog the whole philosophy of play and movement and all. There's lots of research there, and Animal Moves is kind of a subset of that kind of big picture. And for Animal Moves, I have an online video course, a 30-day program. I have the book called Animal Moves, and I also have something called the Animal Moves deck, which is a way of creating kind of randomized workouts or playouts, as I prefer to call them. So, no equipment, just a deck of cards, and you got a few minutes spare. You shuffle the cards. Here you go, a new workout or playout for me to do. So it's an even more fun way of kind of getting engaged with Animal Moves than and I'm really excited about it. It's just been launched, and it's been used all over the world already. So I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic. Darryl, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I really do hope that we can connect again soon.
For sure. Thanks so much, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Functional Health Podcast. You can find links to everything that we talked about today in the show notes. If you have a second, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does make a huge difference and helps get this valuable information out and reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date and know whenever I release a new episode. You can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, or our website, and all questions are welcome. As always, thanks to Josh Aurelia for the editing and Alan Harper for his support.